Coming up next on Art Rocks, drawing on life experiences to create beautiful art.
I always knew what I wanted to paint would be nature. One of the best parts of landscape is showing incredible depth. But to translate all that depth onto a two-dimensional surface takes time, it takes energy, and takes study.
A partnership in creative design and a National Museum of African-American History. That's all about to happen on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox-Smith of Country Roads Magazine, back with another dose of Art Rocks. We begin right at the water's edge with New Orleans' Billy Solitario. The artist actually grew up in Gautier, Mississippi, where the twin constants of sea and sky shaped his artistic sensibility. Living in the South, where everything is horizontal, Solitario is fascinated by vertical things, and he loves to paint the summer cumulonimbus clouds. Besides the sky, he also loves to paint what lurks beneath the surface, the crabs, the shrimp, and the oysters he grew up catching as a child.
Still life and landscape. Those are my two favorite genres. So I was born in California. I grew up in Gautier, Mississippi, which is right on the Gulf Coast, a little small town. I was fortunate enough to grow up right on the water. I had a little John boat and a little 5 horsepower motor, and I'd go out and we'd go crabbing, we'd go fishing, we'd go oystering. That was kind of my summer camp, was just spending all that time in nature. And as I got older, started being interested in art, I always knew what I wanted to paint would be nature. One of the best parts of landscape is showing incredible depth. It doesn't come naturally. You see it naturally. You can understand it naturally when you're seeing it in nature. But to translate all that depth onto a two-dimensional surface takes time, it takes energy, and takes study. There's different types of perspective. There's linear perspective, there's atmospheric perspective, there's color perspective, which is kind of more complicated. These are different ways of showing depth on a two-dimensional surface. I studied under Oscar Ozals at the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts, but also studying through observation and just starting to see and starting to understand. It takes a lot of work to do it, but it's a lot of fun once you know how. I would consider myself to be kind of a classic realist. It's representational painting, but it's not photorealism. I feel that there's expression in the bold strokes, and then at the end I come in a little bit tighter. But there's still paint on the surface, there's still that quality that you can see. The problem with learning how to the craft of painting is that you tend to want to be very representational once you learn it. One of my favorite subjects is clouds, and one of my favorite foregrounds is the Mississippi River. I love having large cumulonimbus clouds, the big ones that are coming, that are the most dramatic. They are the grandfathers of the clouds. And I love having the Mississippi River at the bottom. I love the fact that we can have this incredibly large container ship that's only this big. And the cloud is gigantic. It's this wonderful play on what we think as humans is big. Nature is 5 times larger. And here in New Orleans, we are very familiar with nature, and with every summer, we all get ready for the hurricane season. We are always reminded how precarious we are, this little tiny sliver of land surrounded by all this water. In a way, I like for my landscapes to be a metaphor for this nature versus our little sliver of land at the bottom. Another one of my favorite still life subjects is the oyster, specifically the oyster shell. It's a fantastic, simple little creation. We all know the mother of pearl, and all the colors of the rainbow are contained in it. It's subtle, it's beautiful. The shell for the creature itself, it's magnificent. The grays inside the shell are surrounded by greens and purples and little subtleties of color. So I'm often painting them in series like that with the shells, and also I love putting lemon wedges because the strong yellow light versus all the subtle colors in the oyster. That is definitely one of my favorite subjects I go back to all the time. The crab on the tomato is a nice little piece. What's interesting is that instead of having the crab just laying flat on the surface, and I noticed that by lifting them up a little bit, you're adding some more character to it, you're adding a little bit more narrative to it because it looks like it's more alive. I'm much more interested in this not as a piece of food, but more as a living creature. The blue crab is incredible too. It has worked so hard to create all these beautiful colors every single color of the rainbow. The reds, the oranges, and the blues, and the pinks, and it's in mud, and we think of it as this kind of this creepy thing that's crawling around the mud, but it's working really hard to become this incredibly beautiful thing. A drop of water is, we perceive it to be a certain thing, but in reality, it's just a value and some edge quality. The crawfish on the garlic, or crawfish riding a garlic, it almost looks like. In the garlic itself, you can see at the end, the highest value is almost pure white, just laid on in a very thick manner. While the highlights along the back of the crawfish, again, are laid on there in a heavy manner. I also try to have line variations. I like to have the edges of things to not always be sharp. I like the edges of things to have soft edges and sharp edges. I'm from the school of thought that says drawing is everything. I'm constantly drawing. Drawing from observation, drawing from your mind, always thinking about how value and design is worked into paintings. I usually work wet on wet, a la prima, meaning that you're working very quickly, almost one sitting. Sometimes I'll do all the painting in one sitting by putting down thinner layers at the beginning and then fatter layers on top of that and heavier layers on top of that. You're able to get a lot of depth within the painting, even in one sitting. Sometimes a week later I'll realize, it needs a little something here, it needs a little something there.
To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, keep your eyes peeled for a copy of Country Roads magazine. And while we're at it, LPB's Art Rocks website features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any episode again, just log on to lpb.org. Now, please consider a pair of Milwaukee artists who have found creative ways to combine glass and steel to create extravagant floral sculpture. Take a look at how they do it.
We believe the fragility of the glass and the ruggedness, the sturdiness of the stainless steel are a great combination. My name is Jerry Hirschman, and I am a glass blower.
My name is Michael Paul Theory. I am a stainless steel metal sculptor. Partners in art is Jerry and me, combining our talents, mine in stainless steel and Jerry in glass, to create things of beauty. And we are indeed partners in our art.
Michael and I were doing our own art simultaneously and doing the art shows together side by side with booths.
One day we just kind of brainstormed what could we do differently. So I just made a very simple stem, so to speak, out of stainless steel. And I made a little hook on top of it. We could attach a piece of Jerry's glass to it. And we looked at it and said, let's put some leaves on that.
And once we came up with the concept of our flowers, it really flourished into us really being partners in art.
We saw something there that we've never seen before.
And Michael helps me with every piece of glass I make. I help him with his stainless work. And we just married the two arts together. Michael and I decide on a color scheme so that we have some continuity with the sculpture or the bouquet, if you will. We decide how many pieces we're going to have. For instance, they can be multicolor, but they all have something in common, whether they have white specks or a yellow center or a red rim going around the outer part of the bowl. And from there, Michael builds the sculptures.
I go into United Salvage, and it's like going into a candy store, and I see all these wonderful things, and I just love to pick and choose. That's how I get the steel that I work with. So then we'll take the steel and we'll cut it, and we will bend it, twist it, turn it, and do everything we can to it to get a shape that is pleasing. And then we'll take the steel and we'll grind the surfaces of it, put in designs if it has to have designs. Then we clean the edges of it, make it smooth, so there's no rough edges after the grinding. And then we put the pieces together into a completed plant for the flowers that Jerry made.
Michael pushes himself to create more creative pieces all the time. The glass blowing process starts with a crucible of molten glass at 2150 degrees on a 5-foot blow rod. Once you begin the process of glass blowing, you constantly have to turn the blow rod. Then we add the color and we begin the blowing process. For the flowers, we always add a patty, which is a separate piece of glass that I let fall onto a marvering table, cut it, and we place the actual blown piece onto it, so that is going to now be the place where Michael's stainless hook will rest, and it'll keep the flower up on the sculpture. We will then open it wide, spin it out, let it hang down to give it kind of the handkerchief effect, they call it. Once we're done with the blown piece, we put it in an annealing oven. You can then have it start ramping down, and glass needs to cool about 2 degrees a minute. And by the next day, it's at room temperature. You can bring it out.
Each piece shows Jerry's emotion, and I think that's a real plus.
We've created a variety of sizes, some individual flowers, some with multiple flowers, with a variety of colors. So there's something for everyone.
It's all a non-stop problem solving. That's what art is all about. It's constant problem solving. And eventually, with some collaboration, you can get through it. I personally love people's reaction to it. They'll look at it for its beauty. Jerry's on my combination. And they'll be afraid when we show them that the piece can be functional, that we have something that really hasn't been introduced to this area before. And I think that's the fun part of it, besides loving the art ourselves.
Michael and I get to share time together being creative. Our creating is really our entertainment. That's what we do. We've done it for so many years. We both have been doing this for about 25 years, and it's our way of life. It's pushing yourself and pushing the limits, and it's endless what you can do with glass.
Keep your mind open and don't let anybody tell you you can't do something. Don't let them say you can't.
They're conversation pieces that we have all over the country. We definitely want people to enjoy our art.
We are leaving an emotional impression on people. And I think that's what art's all about. It's a collaboration. We do it together. And that's what makes us, I believe, successful artists.
The National Afro-American Museum and Cultural Center in Wilberforce, Ohio, welcomes visitors from around the world. And it's the permanent home to one of the largest collections of Afro-American materials in the country. Let's take a look inside.
The intent behind opening this museum was to truly celebrate African American history and culture. Our museum started with the concept, I think in the mid-1970s. This area here, Wilberforce, very long history, very historic. Wilberforce University being the third HBCU, as it were, ever, and again before 1865. So this was founded during slavery. So the history, the meaning behind that is really deep. So we think it's fitting that the first National African American Museum would be situated on one of the oldest HBCU campuses anywhere. African Americans from all over the country have had some sort of history here, or some aspect, or been in contact with something that happened here in Wilberforce. C.J. McLean, U.S. Senator John Glenn, people like that got together, started to toy with the idea of building a museum, a national museum, which at that time hadn't existed in this country. We've had lots of local, some state museums in other parts of the country, but not a national museum dedicated to, general African American history. Our doll collection is one of the cornerstone collections, I think, in our institution. And if you read anything about history, you know that as far back as during slavery, African American children made their own dolls, makeshift things just to play with, and those were passed down in a lot of instances, generation to generation, and they began to collect those. And we've put together exhibitions that's traveled throughout the country on African American dolls.
Our exhibits are set up now 4 to 5 years out. So we, as a team, we come up with a plan for what types of exhibit we'd like to have. We have our changing exhibit gallery, and those exhibits are up for 6 months to a year, depending on the topic. And then we have also our long-term exhibit, and that's a 5-year minimum exhibit. We really touch on the pulse of the community. That's what we really strive to do. So, as an exhibit curator and designer, I find my role to be to make sure that we're communicating to the various learning styles, to various audiences. And so the fact that we have 2 different types of exhibit, the changing exhibit tends to be more about artists and what artists are doing today. So we have 2 ways to tell that story, to continue to tell various stories and the various important points that we're putting out there.
This museum is a blessing. It's a blessing to the general community, it's a blessing to the African American community, and it's a blessing to those who are going to come after us. This museum allows us to leave an imprint on this society. It allows us to leave a piece of ourselves here to let you know, one, that we were here. You can come in here and look at what a kitchen looked like in 1950, 1960. It's just a place for family. I'm telling you, I would not be here if it were not for the museum. And it also encourages artists to step out, and have faith and believe that you can be an artist.
The founding director and some of the other subsequent directors we've had, they had the foresight to collect African American art. Our art collection obviously is not the biggest art collection that exists, but it's so jam-packed full of such rare pieces because we were collecting so early when others were just doing things locally. We were collecting nationally. So when we look at our art collection now, it's so much interest in that. What I would like our visitors to take away from a visit here is just how genuine we are trying to be with telling stories about history. Our mantra at this point is own your history, live your legacy. We're being genuine, we're being true to history, but we're also trying to get you to be more proactive. Take these lessons that generations past have learned and tried to pass down to us, take those lessons and apply it.
A little bit north of Ohio, we met Akeem Salmon in Detroit, Michigan. He is a young star in the making. Discover what inspired this young artist to create photography portfolios as a student at one of Detroit's premier art schools.
I don't necessarily capture moments, I create them. I'm from 2 different places in Jamaica. I'm never one place. I'm either over there, But for me, I'm exposed to a lot of different social backgrounds. Our motto for Jamaica is out of many one people. In the high school, it's the same thing. Regardless of who you are, we are like always together. The mix of cultures and the ability to go from one race to other and there's no conflict or whatever. So yeah, that's how Jamaica really reflects in my art. To be honest, coming in Detroit, I was traumatized, meaning that I didn't know what to do. I was like, there was like so much stereotypes attached to high schools, and I was like getting scared because you're Jamaican, you're new to a country. My mom took some time online and then she found Detroit School of Arts. When I heard the school's name, I was like, that's a high school? That sounds like a college. Are you sure that's real?
It's such a great place for him because he can express all of the ways that he is artistically gifted throughout our school. He uses our dance majors for his photography. He uses our art students to help him create his beautiful pieces of work of art, and it's just everything. He just encompasses everything.
For me, Detroit School of Art has really done a lot. The opportunities that they're given, like every art competition. Like the very first day I came here, I showed my art teacher my portfolio, and ironically, like there was this like scholastics art and writing competition, and she took my portfolio and was like, this is like 10 images out of it, so I think she might have just sent like 4 out of them. I didn't get the portfolio thing. I got 3 gold keys, a silver key, plus the American Vision Award, which is like the best of show out of 6,600 entries across Michigan. But for what Detroit School of Art has done is like, it's a family, and I really appreciate the atmosphere here. There's like legit no bullying. I'm like saying there's like this whole unity in this entire school. There hasn't been any negative comments towards things, and yeah, everyone is just really supportive, and I feel at home at Detroit School of Arts, really.
He has such vision for such a young man. I mean, what I see in his artwork, I would expect to see in the artwork of someone who has been in the business for years and years. He has such a wisdom about his artwork and just the vision, like he has seen this world before. Like he has lived the life to 100 and started over again, because it just comes through in whatever he does and puts on canvas or shows in photography or whatever form of artwork he's using. I'm really intrigued as to where he gets his ideas to put things together, to stage people and objects and use certain colors or textures in his work.
I love to write. When I write to like invite readers to carry them through and to like utilize different words to let them feel what I'm feeling. And my whole passion of writing poems and descriptive writing that really grabs a person is the same thing I feel about my photography. How does it make me feel? How it would make an audience feel? And the thing is, regarding poses, I do get inspiration, I would say, like from the magazines, any fashion, high-end fashion or so magazines, because again, everything started with lamb. So I look at the magazines and be like, wow, how can I pull that off with lamps that I find around the house? And I see like all the different poses, and I see like the neutralness. It just invites you. And so what the same concepts that they apply with their poses, I put my own element of like theater and writing into it, so it pushes at the audience even more. Pertaining to editing, that's actually where everything comes alive, because bringing it on the computer, I get to apply my abilities in illustration, graphic design, and painting and stuff into my editing process. I would literally take the time to really articulate the models and give them the different aesthetics that I want them to convey in the finished piece.
Sometimes it's just wow, just absolute, just the wow factors, and then it's just taking you deeper into, where in your mind is this piece taking you, and just the other worlds. He has pieces where there's a part of a body, but then there's something else there, and it's just like, well, wow, how does that all fit together? And it just really speaks to your heart and your emotions as well as your mind.
The photo session that I'm going to be doing today is themed Soul of the Arts. It's going to be a very intricate composition utilizing all the different majors in Detroit School of Arts, such as radio and television, dance, drama, and visual arts, and put some twists into it because I'm really looking forward to it.
The students are really freeing themselves to be a part of his artwork. I've seen students who would be afraid to say 2 words to me, put on a costume, put on makeup, and allow themselves to be posed in photographs in ways that I never thought that particular student would be able to show that kind of expression. So he really taps into that core in the students that some of them haven't been able to get at yet, and I think that that's very, very exciting.
I have to ensure that everyone is okay regarding the visual aspect. I did ask one person to kind of help me out, but normally I really don't tell my models to worry about stuff too much, like makeup or anything, because I said I can do that on Photoshop. I guess the most I tell them is like wear a little black lipstick because it kind of eliminates like the Photoshop process when I actually paint it on, because I think that causes noise and stuff. But for the most part, I don't tell my models to really worry about the post process right now. For me, I just ensure that they're posed properly, they're having the correct facial expressions, and I do everything on the computer.
I fully expect to hear in a few years that Akeem will have a one-man show in some really fancy museum in New York. But whatever he does, I hope that he has fun and that he never loses his passion for it, because that's what comes out most in his artwork, his passion, his dedication for it. And I don't want him to, do it as just a business. I want him to keep the heart that he has in his artwork and to always let that show wherever he goes.
And that is that for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, art lover, you can always watch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. And if that's not enough for you, Country Roads Magazine is a great resource for enriching your cultural life with art, cuisine, escapes and events all across the state. Until next week, I've been James Fox-Smith, and thank you for watching.